Hello, everyone. Today is Saturday, February 26th. My name is Elena, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you to the workshop dedicated to parental leaves, current situation, needs, and proposals. So it's a joint workshop between two villages, and I'm the representative and participant of the Village Women for Economy. We have dedicated the workshop cycle to women's unspoken questions. And it's very important to illuminate how female talent can contribute to modern economy. First workshop was dedicated to the topic and the question, how smart is smart working? The second workshop, we have discussed the falling down in female occupation during the pandemic. What changed? How changed? And what were the reasons of this changing? We have talked about the way women express care through their work, through their contribution, had to change their way and style of fulfilling duties, being employees. And today we are here ready to start our workshop dedicated to the topic of parental leaves. So today we are going to have and to listen to several participants and a guest speaker. First, Eliana Canavesio, an economist, a member of our village, Women for Economy, an activist of the European Party World, co-president of the Italian chapter, will provide us an overview on parental leaves in Europe and the role of the state. Then, Diletta Pasqualotto, MBA in leadership. She also studies in international management and currently working in foreign department. A mother of a 5-year-old son, will provide her personal experience and outcomes related to supportive behavior of the employer and biological changes in new mom's state and brain, and how biological being a mother can contribute to the way she works and the way she can really improve her contribution to the duties that she's fulfilling. So then Elizabeth Garillo, who's got a daughter of 10 months, a director of Policy Lab at New America, focused on family economy policy, working to support impact investing in policy and focus on care, will share her personal experience. Then a participant who's a man, a father of 3 and expecting the 4th in May, Diego Arraez, a PhD candidate in IAS Business School, interested in business ethics, humanistic management, and sustainability. But most of all, a good dad, will share his experience as a man. And in the end, our guest, LUCIA Marchegiani, a mother of 6, an associate professor of business organizations and human resources management at ROMA University. And her research interests also include flexible and agile organizations, will provide some comments, insights, and we'll have a brief discussion together with her and all of us together on this interesting topic. So the questions are expected to arrive both on YouTube and in Zoom. So we're expecting to your comments, reflections, and questions. So first of all, I'm giving a word to Eliana. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Elena, and thank you everyone for being here. I will start with an overview of parental leaves. The perspective would be mainly European because this is the world I live. It's funny to consider often Europe to be, especially some part of Europe, being the most progressive part of the world, but it's still not the case for parental leaves. This is what happens in Italy now. So this is the narrative around maternity. This is the news of some last week, I think. During an interview, this woman confesses to be pregnant. And the entrepreneur, that is male, of course, so the superhero, is accepting this condition and hiring her. So this is really a signal that there is still a lot to do. And this reflects not only in newspaper or just chit-chatting, but also in the labor market. You can see the employment rate in women and men, and with children and without children. As we are expecting, Sweden, Denmark are pretty good, but still they're not equal. And Italy is sadly, my own country, is sadly on the last place. Well, it's bad for all women, but especially women with children. If you see the difference, women with children are less than 60% employed among the population that can be employed between 25 and 55, compared to almost 90% of men with children, which is a really different treatment. There is some kind of motherhood penalty. This is from a study from 2007. It's interesting. I mean, mothers suffer a penalty relative to men and women that are not mothers, but it's funny, on the contrary, how fathers get like a premium for being fathers. So women that are mothers are perceived to have lower competence and commitment. For instance, it's not tolerated that women with kids are late at work, while on the other hand, fathers are perceived more committed to work than non-fathers. There are higher professional expectations for mothers. There is a lower likelihood of hiring and promotion, and the gender wage gap increases for women with kids. While on the contrary, fathers actually get a higher starting salary. So it's very funny how there is a different perception of parenting at work. I think countries, and this is the main point, countries must act to guarantee a level playing field, because during this webinar, we will listen to good practices and firms that are actually promoting work-life balance, parenting, but it cannot be just a matter of luck. It cannot be that you are lucky to be in the good place, and so that's it. If you're unlucky, you cannot have both. So the role of the state should be to actually guarantee that we move from motherhood penalty to motherhood as normality of life. I would say parenting as normality of life. A part of life that is not an obstacle, is just a part of life. Often we hear maternity as like, oh, it's an obstacle to productivity, it's an obstacle to development. But actually, this is, I would say, a very capitalistic and consumistic way of thinking life. Thinking that, and especially for women, they're not exclusively worker, but they're not even exclusively mother. We should start consider all women. I would say also all men, because men are not even considered fathers often, at 30-60 degrees. I mean, as individuals that are much more than their roles. Going to Europe, we can see that it's actually not all about maternity leave. Actually, Europe is performing pretty well concerning maternity leave, which is the leave from work for mothers. It's at least 14 weeks plus two, these are compulsory, plus 2 weeks that are optional for women. And all EU countries already adopted this maternity leave, also because the directive is from 1992. But for paternity leave, which is actually the equivalent or should be the equivalent of maternity leave, the situation is not the same. The EU directive comes from 2019, but not all countries have transposed the directive into national law, which is the mean to make it actually a national law and so active. But in any case, will be minimum 10 days, which I guess that Diego will tell us more from the father's side, but it's not enough. And it's completely different. Of course, we should have at least 14 weeks for maternity leave, but it's not even close to enough, the 10 days. And it's very different around Europe. For instance, Scandinavian countries have more than 1 month each, reaching almost 52 weeks in parental leave in Sweden, while countries like Italy, Greece, but not even Germany, they don't even reach 10 days. So really now in Italy, it has been deposited a proposal of law for at least 3 months fully paid or at least 80% paid, like maternity leave. Last but not least, we have parental leave, which varies from country to country, but often is unpaid. So actually this is a burden for women, for the mothers, because they are the one gaining less, and so they are the one that can sacrifice their job. Actually, it would be a nice complement to maternity and paternity leave, but it must be used very well. So I leave the floor to Diletta.
Thank you very much, Eliana. The coverage about the public importance is crucial because it provides social security to women who were not lucky with their employer. And this moment of vulnerability should be supported if we need to, and we want to be talking about truly welfare state. So the days and the percentage of coverage provided by government in the country of citizenship is really important. Thank you very much. Diletta, please share with us your personal experience as a mother of a 5-year-old boy whom I personally already met and like so much. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So hello everyone, I'm Diletta and I'm from Italy, same country of Eliana. And as Eliana already said, there are some of us that are born in a lucky situation. And thank God I am one of them. But by sharing my experience, I want to other companies to give the same opportunity for other women, same as my experience. So what I want to explain to you is how a supportive company employer can generate not only a more positive parental leave, but also job performance. But before sharing my experience, I really want to highlight that not all the experiences are the same. And above all, not all mothers and fathers have the same feeling and attitudes. So from sharing my experience, my ultimate goal is to show positive outcomes from parental leave for both employer and employee. So I have, as Ellen already mentioned, a 5-year-old boy, and I chose to work until the 8th month of pregnancy. I come back after 3 months after the birth. Therefore, I did only the mandatory maternity leave. The reason behind my choice is a cross analysis between my inner personality toward my career ambition and how my son and I felt during maternity leave. So I've always been career-oriented, and this trait of my personality didn't change during pregnancy and during the first month of postpartum. Actually, I felt like my traits that define my career orientation improved a lot. For example, paradoxically, I had more energy and concentration to dedicate to my professional work. And this actually is biologically proven, as later I will show to you. So I came back to work when my son was 4 months old for 4 hours a day. And again, this decision was linked to how my son and I felt. We were comfortable being 4 hours separated. And I can assure you that the quality time between us after those working hours improved a lot. And in these 4 hours, I was able to do the same amount of work I was doing in 8 hours. So how I was able to have a positive maternity leave and come back to work very soon, obviously had something to do with my inner attitude to not give up on my career side. But it definitely was thanks to the support of the company. I had a lucky situation and I did not experience that fear of telling the employer that I was pregnant, as most of women have. And I did not feel the pressure or the fear to be declassified. I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do without professional fear. So thanks to the company support, I had a great maternity leave and first month after birth, where I was able to understand the new habits with a newborn. And let me say that the first month with a newborn is the hardest job in this world. So my message today is not only for parents or future parents, but above all to employers. Being supportive with the to-be parent, it will bring positive outcomes for the company. Even though, allow me to say, it would be nice that companies will be moved by humanity goals and not only profit goals. So now I'm going to share my screen because I want to show, as I said, this one, yeah. Okay, why and how maternity leave is an advantage. So we have to underline that the first month of the birth are very delicate because it changes not only the habits, but also the psychological and biological traits of the mother due to the hormones produced by the body. Let me see. Okay, so from a biological perspective, many studies observe that since the first month of pregnancy, the neurons of women are increasing in size. Some of the neurons have been shown not only grow, but to potentially increase their capacity to produce protein in one part of the brain and increase their neuronal branches to make communication from one neuron to another neuron that it wasn't talking with before. In fact, very similarly, Dr. Lambers of Virginia's University of Richmond observed that hormones produced since pregnancy increase neuronal branches in a nearby brain area called the hippocampus. And also more branches create more oxytocin and dopamine that are hormones responsible for reducing stress, influencing the generosity and empathy side, together with improvement of skills such as problem solving, handling stress, and I have a more short-term memory and even the ability to sleep less. Moreover, maternity is considered as one of the life window in which the brain plasticity increases. So the plasticity of the brain is the ability to change and adapt as a result of experience. In this case is the maternity. So see how nature makes women a perfect fit in this work-oriented world. If you take a look at all these strong outcomes resulted from pregnancy and sum them up with all the qualities that still exist in women, we can conclude that a mother is more than suitable candidate for even managerial roles. And all these new skills and performance can only enhance if the mother, the new parent, has support from the employer. So I conclude saying, why don't we celebrate what biologically the nature has given to mom? So I hope I helped with my little experience, my only one son experience, and I'm thrilled to hear from my colleagues' experience as well. Hopefully they were lucky as mine. But again, I really want employer to understand that we have to be more supportive with new parents.
Thank you so much, Diletta. It was really interesting to listen about the biological aspect of being a mother, on how it changed and how it changed you. Right now, I would like to give a word to Elizabeth. Please share with us your experience. And you've got a daughter who is only 10 months, less than a year. That sounds amazing. You're welcome.
Thank you, Elena. And thank you, Diletta and Eliana, for your comments, which I find a lot of resonance with. I can really relate to much of what you're saying. So I'd like to start with this story of two sisters. It's myself and my sister. We both had babies last year, 1 month apart. I was fortunate to be working with an employer that provided 12 weeks of voluntary paid maternity leave after my daughter was born. And I was living at the time in Washington, D.C., which, along with 9 other states in the United States, shared the cost of that maternity leave with the employer. So that made it more possible for my employer to provide the 12 weeks of leave. My sister was working at a hair salon, which had no maternity leave policy, and she was living in a state that did not provide any paid leave policy. So she took 6 weeks of unpaid leave after her son was born. So it was interesting for me to be living this experience, same family, 2 very different realities. And this is in some ways the story of parental leave here in the United States. Our country consistently ranks very low in the investment in policies that would support women and men with the ability to work and care for themselves, for their children, for their loved ones, without being forced to choose between the two. So here in the US, we have no guarantee of paid maternity leave, and also no guarantee of paid paternity or parental or sick or family caregiving leave. So we have a lot of work to do. Nationally, we have an unpaid 12-week Family and Medical Act leave, which covers about 60% of people who are working, but still provides no pay. So here, employers can offer voluntarily to provide that maternity leave, but that only covers about 23% of people who are working. So what Diletta was sharing is important, and there is a movement here to try and encourage more employers to think about providing that kind of voluntary leave, but there's currently no guarantee from the state. So this was my situation last year. My employer offered 12 weeks, as I mentioned, after I gave birth to my daughter. And my return to work at 12 weeks was still very challenging. I had experienced very strong postpartum anxiety, which was clinically diagnosed. I was still working through the many biological changes that had led to anxiety. And coming back to work, I remember struggling with my own confidence in work because of the anxiety that I was still working with. I was also using my breast pump every 3 hours, which made it hard to be at present at the meetings and do the many calls that I was being asked to do. And I remember at a certain point just saying, you're going to hear the pump going to go boom, 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 and you're just going to have to deal with it. And so I would do a lot of Zoom calls with the breast pump in the background. So I was still really working through my own rhythm and understanding my experience as a working mother. I also love my work and I wanted to be back working, but I wanted to be back working with the kind of flexibility that would allow me to continue to care for my body and deal with the postpartum anxiety that I was experiencing. As I said here, many people do not have an employer that would provide that leave or that would be so kind and generous as someone is returning to leave. I thankfully had a boss who I was working for who was very supportive. She herself was a mother and she encouraged me along the way to stay with it, to do what I needed to do to take care of myself. It's been a challenge, but it has ultimately worked out very well for us. There is, however, here many people increasingly working in this gig economy. They do not have an employer affiliation, so there are many challenges for those who might want to have children and continue working, but don't have that safety net from the state that can provide them with that kind of support. The other thing I wanted to share from my experience is that I think in many ways, these challenges around paternity and maternity leave and parental leave are also compounded by the fact that here in the US, we have not invested in our care infrastructure. So we have licensed childcare providers that only cover 23% of infants and toddlers in this country. So if you do have to go back to work after some weeks, and you're left trying to find care for your infant, you're often met with very long waiting lists at these centers. It's also very expensive. Excuse me, the cost to have your child in a facility or in a childcare provider often amounts to about 20% of your take-home pay for a family of 3. So it gets very expensive, and the pandemic has put a lot of the childcare sector into more crisis. So that has here contributed to the first female recession from the workforce that we've seen in 50 years. So many women are leaving the workforce. In my experience, it's actually led to my husband staying home with our daughter full-time. So we discerned that in my job, I could be in a better position to provide us with health insurance and some income security, but we are on 7 wait lists for providers to help us care for our daughter so that we could both try and work. So we're still waiting. Our daughter is 10 months old. We're still waiting to try and find some part-time help from a childcare center that can work alongside us so that we can continue to piece a life together where we are working and caring. And that is ultimately my dream, is to have a life where we can weave together work and care harmoniously. I want to work and I want to care. I don't want to have to choose to make the false choice between the two. And so there are interesting proposals underway here in the US right now. There is a national piece of legislation called Build Back Better that would make moves toward providing 4 weeks of paid leave guaranteed across the country, which still seems like nothing to me. It's very inadequate. It is a start, though, in providing people with some basic level of leave, which could boost their workforce participation, particularly among women, and support men's involvement in their children's lives as well. So that's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. That's impressive. And I'm very happy that to hear that your husband is available to provide that much support and solidarity in family, taking care full time of your daughter. I think that when we're talking about women for economy, not before. And I'm happy to give a word to a man because we're talking about parental leaves, not only maternity leaves. So I would like to ask Diego Arias to share his experience as a father with us. Diego, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Alina. Well, first of all, I'm grateful for being here. I'm honored to share my experience with you guys. Well, so let me just walk you through my experience. This is me when I was 21 years old. I was single. I didn't have any kids, and I was living in Rome. And that's where my path started. Right there, when I was 21 years old, I didn't want to get married or anything. And then Rome happened to me. And now I am a father of three. My wife is pregnant currently with the fourth that is going to be born, God willing, in May. And there are certain things that I have been thinking regarding parental leave and also regarding my wife's decision when my first boy was born to leave her job. So first of all, I am from Peru. And in Peru, the paternity leave, it's for the father, it's only 10 days. I have seen other presentation, I think from Eliana, that it says at least 14 weeks, at least, no, in Peru is maximum 10 days for the father, and for the mother, maximum 98 days, which are 14 weeks. And that is only for formal employees. With countries like Latin America, there is a lot of informal workers. So this is only for formal employees. Right now, I am living in Barcelona with my family because I'm a PhD candidate. I have been doing a PhD the last 5 years. And hopefully, I will manage to graduate before this summer. And I have managed to do it with my three kids, and now in the final year with the four coming soon. And here, I was amazed because I got 16 weeks when my third child was born, Ignacio. I was granted 16 weeks, and I really don't know why, but I even got paid more, which was amazing for me. It was like coming from Peru, where I only had 10 days, my wife 14 weeks, and now I got 16 weeks, and even with a higher pay. And that was just amazing for me, amazing for my family. But however, is that all we need? And here I'd like to just mention, first of all, a huge thank you to my wife, because I mean, she made a decision to stop working to take care of our kids. And then when we moved here, she came with me, and I'm just a student so far. So a big thank you to her. And here, I think that the answer is not only about parental leave. So in reality, it's not all about parental leave. We need more things that should be done. So first of all, I want to say we need more engagement. I like this movie scene because we saw Norman, Rosita's husband, change from the first movie to the second movie. And we need more engagement by parents, by fathers. I mean, especially, for instance, where I come from, in Latin American country, still the fathers, they don't do much regarding the house, regarding taking care of the kids. We need more engagement for the fathers. And as we need more engagement, we also need a more flexible schedule for all, especially for mothers, of course, but it's also for fathers. I mean, when we come here to Spain, it was really amazing for us. It was not easy. The first thing I want to say is it was not easy, the schedule of the school. In Peru, the school starts at 8 a.m. and then at 1 o'clock, more or less, you have your children back at home. But here in Spain, school starts at 9, but you can take your kid from 8 a.m. and school finish at 4:30. But you can leave your kid there until 5:30 in the afternoon, which is really good for families that both parents work. I mean, it was not easy for us at the beginning, but then we got used to that schedule. And now we are looking forward to keep that schedule. And that flexibility should also be present for companies. I mean, every woman should have the right to decide whether she decides to stay at home or whether she decides to continue working. The thing is that it doesn't matter which decision she decides. The important thing is that she won't get penalized for each of those decisions. If she decides to stay at home, she shouldn't be penalized professionally for that decision. If she decides to continue to work, also she shouldn't be penalized for that, because in certain countries there is like a continuous pressure on, yeah, she's a mommy, now then she should stay at home. No, she's still working, therefore she's a responsible mother. I mean, that's crazy. The penalization for women comes from both parts of the equation, being the company or being social pressure, and that should not be the way. So I will say, just to end my participation, that what I think we need more than parental leave, it's a more flexible situation from companies to the father and to the mother, to be able to have more, not only changes in the schedule, but also probably daycare in their own company, so that the mother should be able to see her kid there while she's still working, and more engagement from us, the fathers. I have seen this first-handed in my home country, how automatically the mom, the father, immediately start to do nothing at home. And that is not only crazy, it's irresponsible, and it still happens. And I'm not talking about a country where there is a lot of where there is a situation that by law men shouldn't do these things. I'm talking in Peru, which is a free country, and we managed to do a lot of things. So I guess that will be it for my part, and just a huge thank you for all of you, mothers and women and mothers that are here with me, and also again a huge thank you for my wife Leah. I really appreciate all the hard working, all the sacrifices that you are doing for our family. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you, Diego. And at this point, I'm giving the word directly to Lucia, who will make some comments on certain aspects, and then we'll have a small discussion in the end. Lucia, you're welcome. Please tell us about your family, first of all.
Thank you. Can you see my screen? Can you confirm?
Could you please try to now? Yes. Well, now yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks to all the speakers who have shared their experiences, and I guess I will be also referring to many of the things that they have shared, to the concepts that we have already heard. So I will mix my presentation with my personal experience and some evidences from my research that I'm doing. Well, my field of research is business organizations and human resources management. So my perspective is more from, let's say, managerial perspective, and how organizations deal with parental leaves, or more in general with work-life balance, because when it comes to HR policies with respect to parental leaves, it always involves also some sort of policies on work-life balance and other, let's say, areas of human resources management. So my personal experience is indeed very, very positive, and I'm happy to see that also the previous talks have reported some sort of positive experience. And also when I heard about the US experience, it's I mean, it's interesting to see how things can go different from situation to situation. And I mean, it's very important that we talk about all these issues. But the way I look at my experience is a bit, I don't want to say frustrating, it's actually, I get a bit angry, if I may, because I know I have been lucky. I know I have been graced. I know that mine is a peculiar situation. I have 6 kids. We have a good family. We have very great work. Both my husband and I work at the university. We love our work, our jobs. And we, as Diego was saying, we work in a quite flexible or flexible enough kind of environment that gives us the opportunity to deal with 6 kids. Well, maybe I should say that here in Italy, the average is very much below 6. It's around 1.4. My husband is more expert than me on this subject, but having 6 kids always make people really jump on their seats when they hear this number. And I must also say that we haven't planned, both my husband and I did not have any clue that we will be going to end up in such a huge family. So why angry? Because I would like to have everybody with the same opportunities. Why I should feel especially fortunate that I can be in this situation, and why other women cannot do that. So in this sort of mixed feeling, that's I would like to talk about fear. So when we look at the maternity and paternity from a managerial point of view, usually common sense evokes some sort of fear, both from the employer's point of view and the employee's point of view. The employers generally fear that having women workers leave for maternity would lead to some sort of loss in productivity and also in raising costs, because of course there are more costs related to the fact that some person is not at work. There are some big organizational impact because procedures or processes have to be reshuffled or redesigned, and there might be some sort of loss of talents that can be temporarily during the leave, or even permanent if the person does not decide to go back to work. And there is an interesting phenomenon that is related to the fact that maternity tend to occur later in the life, so at a higher age. So that also means that more experienced staff is taking parental leave than ever before. So this actually from an employer point of view raises the fear, because it raises the prospective costs related to the leave. There is a higher productive cost in the absence of the women or men in parental leave. There is a higher cost of recruiting and training a replacement, because we are talking about experienced staff here. And there is also a higher cost of replacement if they don't return from the leave. On the other side of the picture, also employees fear a lot. Women are, generally speaking, we will say the literature and also anecdotes from real life show us that women are generally very much afraid of even telling the employee, the employer, that they are pregnant. And here I go to my personal experience. I must confess that I've experienced fear a lot. So especially with the 3rd, 4th, and then 5th and 6th pregnancy, which is, as I said, quite exceptional. I was really afraid of telling not even my employer, but the people I worked with, that I was pregnant again. So I would say that there is some subconscious fear in us as women that we are somehow endangering the work environment with our choices. And this is really irrational, because I will tell you more about this, but there is no harm in the work environment provoked by our maternity. But I must say that I have experienced that. And also from a man point of view, it's, I mean, the pregnancy at work somehow brings some fear that they had, men and women have to struggle more with work-life balance. They have to struggle more with getting acquainted by the employer, being recognized for their work, especially when they are absent or they come back. There is also some sort of isolation fear when being absent from work for a period that might be shorter in some countries, longer in other countries, anyhow brings some sort of fear that isolation occur. And when you go back to work, you have to rebuild the trust relationship with the co-worker and with the supervisors. So in this sort of uncomfortable emotion, especially in Italy, the situation of workers, women workers, is quite frustrating. I won't go in detail into these numbers, but just to mention that the President Draghi recently stated that they want to do something to avoid that women have to choose between having children or working. So this kind of awareness that for women, especially for women, having kids or work is a sort of trade-off decision. They are not easily combined. When it comes to small and medium enterprises, and small and medium enterprises, especially in Italy, are very important. First of all, because their number is very high, and mostly because they are, let's say, the spinal of our economy. And I also choose this example of a young woman who was interviewed that got the job despite she confessed her pregnancy. And the fact that it has been so exceptional that everyone has read about it made me think about why is it so exceptional? Why should we read in the news that something like this happened? What interested me even more is that not only, I mean, people talked about this experience, this fact, but also the comments were very diverse. And of course, social media were stuffed with this situation. And I just took this thread from LinkedIn, from one in a group, and also they were describing the situation, what happened. So bravo, Simone, because this is a very good example. But and that was the post, and that there were many comments, and I went through all of them. And it's interesting to notice that beside the very positive comment, it happened to me as well, I was very fortunate, or this is very explicative of how companies should behave, and there is some sort of ignorance that should be torn down, so and so on and so forth. But there were only also a bunch of comments that were in the opposite direction. One experience was reported, wow, 2 children, congratulations, but then the question is immediately, you're not thinking about the third, right? So as like, okay, you're a woman, it's normal that you're going to have kids, but 1 or 2 is enough. You don't want to think about having more than 2, right? Because that would be really exceptional, and so on and so forth. Other comments were like, of course, the owner of the company is the father, ha ha ha, ironic, and other more depressive seems like another word, unfortunately, even like it cannot happen in the real world. And other comments were quite like, maybe this has been done only for promotional reasons. So this company is now getting the attention, is getting very much publicity. So it's a sort of, let's say, yeah, double-sided decision, not genuine, not authentic. So not only this anecdote is interesting because it is treated like an exceptional happening, but also the comments are quite controversial. If we focus again on SMEs, it's interesting to see that, okay, I will not go, this is a welfare index PMI, and as it assesses the level of corporate welfare, especially for small and medium enterprises. So there are some sort of elements in the company policy that are related to the welfare, and when it goes to work-life balance, small and medium enterprises seem to be under to score under the average of the sector in which the company is. But it's interesting to see that the average of the sector, this is one exemplary sector, is quite high. So actually, in work-life balance, small and medium enterprises seem to perform better than bigger companies. But if we look into this work-life, what really work-life balance means, the picture is quite surprising and a bit frustrating, let's say. So other data shows that work-life balance actually means offering like kindergarten, other social services and support, or offering the flexibility that parents need to concile work and private life. Here I talk about parents, but of course work-life balance means also any caregivers worker. So in this picture, what we see is that actually the percentage of companies of small and medium enterprises, this is also for small and medium enterprises, are more for the flexibilization of work rather than the kindergarten and other support services. But other evidence from the literature, and I haven't put all of them in the presentation, show a mixed figures. So it's not clear what really work-life balance means for maternity, and especially for maternity and paternity leaves. There are also some studies about the work loss due to the pregnancy, and unfortunately it's quite depressing to see that the numbers are quite high despite the laws. We also know about situations where women workers are somehow forced to pre-sign resignation letters when they are hired, just in case they got pregnant. And this is very sad, but actually it happens a lot, and it's very difficult also to fight against these procedures. If we go on, there is an interesting book. It's not very recent. It's against kindergarten, because as I said, if we look at the literature that really goes into the work-life balance approach in small and medium enterprises and in bigger corporations, what we find generally is that they are generalized policies, not really much customized for the specific needs of the single worker. This is generally true for all the human resources management policies, and now with more data, big data, and also with, let's say, digital technologies are helping a lot the bigger corporations to dig into data and to somehow personalize the balance or the bundle of policies that they can use to motivate, to engage with the single worker. But generally, when we talk about maternity and paternity, this refers mainly to compliance with the law rather than with finding solutions that are customizable enough to really target the needs of the specific of the single worker, may it be a man or a woman. As I said, most of the time it's made for fiscal reasons or for compliance reasons, not really for the people management approach. And the impact of such policies is generally not assessed. So whether a sort of policy for mothers or for the parental leave make an impact or not is not really assessed. Maybe because employers are generally, as I said at the beginning, more concerned with the costs rather than with the benefits associated to maternity and paternity. In this book, Paola Liberace offered quite a let's say, provocative approach, saying that kindergartens that are used a lot as a policy for supporting maternity and paternity are actually not good, because what they do is they take out the responsibility of parents in educating the children, especially at the beginning when they're very little. And this is a sort of an excuse. You can put your very little kids in a kindergarten so that you can come back to work as soon as possible. But this is actually against the very deep roots of education. When kids need their parents the most, they are somehow put in a sort of course, in a kindergarten, so away from their parents. When parents are, in Paola Liberace did a lot of also interviews and came with the conclusion that when parents are faced with a truly open alternative, they would not put their kids in the kindergarten and go back to work, but they would rather prefer to stay at home and to raise their children at the beginning of their lives. And also another quote is, putting fathers and mothers in a position to make an effective choice would really give them the possibility to follow their children and so to fully express their parenthood. So from a social and economic point of view, this could also be interesting to take into account. Then when it comes to work-life balance, I will go fast here because I know that you have talked about how smart working is, and this is I have quite a clear answer. It's not smart at all, but yes, when we have seen some interesting anecdotes having male and females working at home with their kids, jumping around, and their reactions generally were very different. Whereas you have very nice and soft and tender reactions when even a prominent professor was interviewed by a very prominent newscast. The comments in this news were, oh, how nice, he was with their kids in the back. When it's moms, it's the pictures and the reactions are quite different, I would say. So there is a gender gap also in the use of smart working, and the pandemic has shown it. It has been not a really smart working, it's been an emergency smart working. And if we look at the words of Domenico De Masi, he is a very prominent Italian sociologist, he was saying that actually teleworking were never to work really good, because many company leaders have a very archaic vision of power, and they really have to have the employee at hand and under their clutches. And this sort of control led management actually is very, very hard to fight. We have seen this in the emergency smart working, and as a researcher in this field, I will say that it's not going to change very easily. So this has implications for daily work, but this has very important implications for paternal leaves. Because I would say that paternal leaves, so sorry, I will show also this, I will go back to that later, just to show you that during the pandemic, very interesting figures show that whereas Italy, if I take my country as a focus, performed quite well in terms of time off, so time allocated to leisure and in terms of hours per day. But when it comes to the gender gap in hours worked and having minutes unpaid of work per day, the situation is quite the opposite. So that means that of this time off, women really do not benefit at all. So it's very interesting. So that means that the smart working have put even more struggle into women work. And if we look also at the great resignation phenomenon, so many people are resigning from work, and this seems to be a very interesting phenomenon, because it's not very clear whether this resignation wave is actually resignation from retirement from work at all, or resignment for a better place. So it's a mix. Still, we have to understand this a little bit better. But what is really clear is that there is a clear gender gap here. So what happens seems to be that whereas male resign because they are offered better places, women resign because they are going back to home. So they're not going to work any longer. As I said, this is a very simplistic view, a simplistic statement, and we have to study this phenomenon better. But this is a preliminary sort of conclusion that we are making, looking at the numbers, which is quite interesting, I would say. So if we have talked about let's say legislation and parental leave duration, paid or unpaid, which is definitely an important framework that defines how companies act towards parental leaves, then it's interesting to see that some corporations are adopting innovative approaches to people management. And here I connect and I agree a lot with what has been shown by Diletta about the effects of motherhood and maternity on women, and also on fathers. So if there is this biological effect, and Diletta said, why should not we capitalize on this biological positive effect? So smarter companies, a smart approach to people management would be to try to internalize somehow the positive effect that maternity brings to the brain and to the body of the mothers and of the father, to have to generate positive outcomes also inside the company and in the work environment. It must be said that these biological effects are not there to last forever. So there is a sort of window where hormones or this exceptional experience that we have brings this positive effect. So that means that even within the parental leave window, companies should and could somehow, let's say, travel together with the mother and the new mother and the new father, or the mother and the fathers, to try to capture and to also engage in a sort of shared journey. So, for example, the Maternity as a Master program provides the company and the mothers in maternity leaves and the fathers also with some sort of digital tools and also physical tools that help them navigate together during the leave, so that people do not feel disconnected from work and can also contribute as they can to it. I mean, to be honest, I've had very physiological pregnancies, and as I said, I'm very, very fortunate. So I'm well aware of that. So that means that I have worked until the very last day, and sometimes I have worked even, I mean, not right after the birth, but in some cases also very soon. Of course, I haven't worked full time the whole day. Of course, we know that when there is a newborn in the house, schedules are completely blew off, but we still can contribute to our work, to the company we work for, and we still can have some sort of projects going on with our colleagues and co-workers. So maternity as a master is quite unique, and one could try to capture why it is unique and why, but there are some, I would say more and more companies are trying to adopt this program, or similar to develop similar approaches with in-house solutions. And that's clever, I would say. In this kind of framework, companies could somehow work and benefit from the leadership, because this seems to be the foremost effect of maternity on especially women, that they develop leadership traits due to their maternal experience. And this innovative approach could help women work on the assertivity, because if they feel together, I mean, if they feel in this road together with the company and with their co-workers and with their supervisors, they could develop also more assertivity. And these policies could be actually seen as policies for lifelong learning, even during the paternal leave. It's not always taking care of the kid. It's not always breastfeeding. It's not always changing diapers. There is some time that can be spent, can be leveraged for learning in a sort of lifelong learning approach. So what I'm saying is, I see it as a multidimensional issue. It's a broad issue, and we can maybe focus when it comes to companies and to management. The two dimensions that really companies can tackle are not the private and not the wider social dimension, but many things can be done on the organizational dimension and on the micro-organizational dimension. So working on the processes, on the position and role of the new mother or even of the father, and surely on the organizational dimension. Most of the time, it's a cultural approach. So a cultural approach working on organizational culture requires a change management approach. And I mean, we know we have many tools to drive companies in this change management approach. What I think that it's not an easy answer. It's not, I mean, it's a complex issue, but what we need is a systemic and organic view of maternity and paternity, where organizations of work favors flexible or remote working, but favors really not just on the verge of some sort of emergency, and also includes the micro-domestic and sort of entrepreneurship. So mothers can stay at home with their children, but still work, not giving up their professionalism, and they can dedicate some few hours a day to non-family work. Surely there is a role of the fiscal system, but and here maybe I'm a little sorry about that. It's live. If we consider, yeah, so thanks to the father, and there was not planned. If we consider also the social doctrine of the church, it's not scandalous to think of supporting the home choice of mothers. To me, I would say that, and here I finish with my personal view, I will never conceive myself as a stay-at-home mother. So I share with, I think it was Diletta, but also Eliana, or maybe this is a shared vision, that we conceive ourselves as working moms. But if we conceive a flexible system, maybe we could also try to, let's say, to put in place systemic changes that enables mom to stay at home in some part of their lives and also work in other period of time. So flexibility is not also whether I work from home or I work from my office, but flexibility can also mean whether I work or I stay at home in certain period of time without fearing of losing the career path or losing the job at all, or having to give up with any career, let's say, ambitious. So I'm really thankful for everything that has been said by my previous the previous talk speakers, and I will interrupt now the sharing, and yes, I'm open to the discussion.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us what is the name of our participant who's joined? We'll be very happy to greet. Hey.
Yeah, they are all coming now. Saturday afternoon.
That's so much in line with our topic.
It's not easy to have them apart.
I would like also to underline that our next workshop will be dedicated to development of children. So we have planned 4 workshops, and this is the 3rd one. So the following one is dedicated to the topic of children and their development and the lives of the parents, how much they can dedicate and spend time with their children on the first stages of their life is crucially important also for their further development. So opening the floor for discussion. So I'm very glad to see new participants that have created such an incredible mood right now. Thank you. So if anyone has a question here in Zoom, you're welcome.
I had a question for kind of the fellow speakers here. I was really struck by the stories that you all shared in the media and in companies, and the kind of broader cultural narrative that we have about these topics. And you shared some really promising research. I was really struck in particular by what Diletta shared about the sort of biological traits and attributes in LUCIA, what you shared as well, about what we need to capture in terms of a new understanding of the ways parenting can actually create superpowers that we could be using in our work and also beyond our work. So what is the new narrative that we should be working toward? Do we have an understanding of some of the components or the characteristics of a new narrative, and what would those be in all of your opinions?
I don't know if I can start answering. I don't have a definite answer. I think that the question is very important. And this goes in the direction of provoking a cultural change. So probably we need to think of addressing different targets. Companies want to know what is beneficial for them. So what's the benefits for them? And going towards the direction of highlighting, as Diletta was pointing out, what kind of, not superpower, but characteristics that are beneficial for the work. No, this doesn't work. So I'm not saying that we want neurologists to talk to companies and provide and to the it was better for the the interview of the babies. It worked better. So yeah, mine are very lousy, my kids. So I was saying, yeah, to companies, they want to understand what is beneficial for them. So I would try to build a narrative that highlights the benefits, because what we have heard so far is only on the side of the costs, and we need to somehow reverse that sort of understanding.
Thank you. I would like also to refer to the part where you were speaking about compliance and people management. This balance is very complicated. I think, like, coming back to what Eliana was talking about the public role, and also about what Diletta was speaking about in the terms of importance and being lucky to be like understood by employer. So this balance between like both compliance and both people management is important. So both aspects are important. And so neither should be like priorities. So it's very important for social security to have the necessary support of government in any situation. And people management, like HR management, is crucial, because like some contracts already include the point that it can be like broken and it can be closed in the case of pregnancy. So they already include it at the very beginning. So when the one signs it, knowing that if the one is pregnant, the woman is pregnant, so there is no way out. So unfortunately, this balance is very complicated, and it needs personal attitude of the employer and responsibility. So this kind of aspect of social corporate responsibility should be promoted in all possible ways. So
yeah, I'm sorry if I can add just another element. I didn't want to overload my presentation, but I think that there is a greater window of opportunity now, because I mean, in any case, the SDGs framework is taking place and taking momentum. And within the SDGs framework, of course, the work environment and the quality of work, decent work, is included. So we could also think of somehow leveraging the SDG framework to try to put parental leave and maternity and work-life balance into the picture, because maybe companies who are not convinced, genuinely convinced of these benefits, could do that because it's, let's say, cool to do it because of the SDG. I can claim that my company is sustainable and compliant with the SDG framework because I do so.
thank you. So have we got any other comments?
Well, yeah, I have a small comments, because listening to all these interesting discussions, I see that they're like a common thing, that is the cultural biases. And one of the most difficult problem is how women are going to tell the employer they are pregnant, the fear, the anxiety, the depression, and why they feel so weak just because they are pregnant. And all these cultural biases also that Lucia showed to us. For example, when that amazing lucky woman received a beautiful answer from the employer, all the some comments were very mean. So here it is, the cultural stereotypes that are very difficult to overcome. But if I may suggest a solution, it's very personal. That means that this change in the culture is very personal. Each one of us has to embrace not with aggression, but with strength. We have to be empowered by our femininity. We have to empower by our beautiful side to be mothers and worker. And we just have to walk with the head up, just go straight, be very confident, show confidence, because unfortunately, this is still a very masculine society where if you show aggressive behavior, not violently, but like with behavior. If you show aggressive behavior, the society listen to you, and maybe they don't see you like a weak person. So what I suggest maybe is to embrace this the toughness inside us, and don't let the anxiety, the depression, the fear that we have to share our pregnancy with the society. We don't have to let these bad feelings win us over.
Thank you very much. Diego, Elena, would you like to say something before we close? Because time is flying and unfortunately we don't have much time for other questions. So Diego, you're welcome.
Thank you, Alina. I just want to say that thank you all for sharing your stories. And regarding the discussion on the narrative, the new narrative, I think that bringing the narrative towards the discussion on the business case versus the moral case, right? So we have to take care of women that work because it's going to be good also for businesses. It's kind of saying, probably, I don't know, probably it will be like kind of saying, you can do this, and by the way, you are going to be more profitable. So in a sense, it will be like the eternal discussion in CSR, in sustainability, that you will have to do it only because it's the business case. And I know we don't live in an ideal world. In an ideal world, it should be done because it's the right way to do it. It should be done because it is how it should be done, and not because you have to prove the companies that they are going to gain more money. So I guess, I mean, it is a tool, but I think it is a tool that we have to take with caution. Otherwise, it will be like another greenwashing tool for sustainability and so on, and we don't need one more of those, right?
Absolutely. Well said. Like, if final notes from a man in this topic are really essential. Thank you very much.
I would just close saying thank you for sharing all your personal experience, which I think it's always very meaningful, because otherwise it's just talking about, I don't know, welfare or organizational models, but then it's all about people. I'm going to close with a more pop note, because talking about the public narrative, around maternity and paternity. In Italy, it was published an article about Chiara Ferragni and her husband, and saying that Chiara Ferragni went to New York for the Fashion Week, and her husband was the mommy at home. It's difficult translation, but in Italian, it was not the dad was at home doing the dad, but it was like the exceptional news, and it was the mommy, like more trying to diminish the role of the father. But actually, people complained about that, and the article was changed. So, and Fedez was at home with the kids, and it was that. So something maybe is slowly changing, and I think it should start also from the words that we use.
Yes, the terminology we articulate always identifies and stipulates the further development of the narratives. So that's why I narrative. And I would like to thank you again for the contributions and for a wonderful discussion that we've had today. So it's almost 4:30. So thanks again. And I would like to remind that our next workshop will be dedicated to the development of children. So to indicators and to various aspects. The exact date and topic will be communicated later on. So please stay tuned and see you in spring. And thanks again to all our speakers. Have a great evening. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Have a great
you.
weekend. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, nice to meet you.